Hello everyone, hello Septmates. Make yourselves comfortable around the campfire. Tonight we will be playing Heart of the Forest again. This time we are going for a completely different playthrough. Last time we were aiming for Ragabash, and apparently I'm a terrible Ragabash because I ended up a Philodux. So let's see tonight, as I try to go for ahroun, see what I'm going to end up as. Before I do that, however, there was a few subjects that I wanted to discuss briefly. Like I did last time, we were talking last time about what's a first change, generally what's a werewolf, and what are the 5 auspices. Today I would like to briefly touch on the subject of what is a pack and what is a sept. And that is because at the end of the demo last week, the character had a dream vision thing in which we saw 2 entities. One was a wolf, which I believe represents, of course, werewolves, and the other one was a weasel. And to properly explain what I think this means, I need to explain what a totem is. And without knowing what a ahroun or a pack is, totems won't have the full meaning, essentially. So we will be touching that before I start the stream briefly. So obviously werewolves run in pack, but what exactly does that mean? Well, a pack of werewolf is a unit of, by the book, it says about 2 to 8 individuals, werewolves. Kinfolks, in some extremely rare cases, can be part of a pack. That's more of a social thing. For example, I could see Children of Gaia maybe allowing it. But generally speaking, it's best to just think it doesn't happen, because that would be a 1 in a billion chance of happening. So let's just go with the werewolf version. Werewolves join together in packs of 2 to 8 individuals who either will form a temporary or a permanent pack. A temporary pack could be literally 2 or 3 werewolves just happening to cross paths while they're, for example, hunting the same worm creature, and they just look at each other and say, hey, why don't we work together to do it? And they can form a temporary pack. Most packs are permanent, however. And these packs will have what's known as a totem, and guiding them, essentially, because that's what a totem is. It is a spiritual guide. Having a pack gives a certain spiritual unity to the members of that pack. Having a spirit entity leading you means that you gain a whole bunch of advantages. For example, you can share in the system, you can share initiative in certain circumstances. You gain the ability to coordinate easily because you're in tune with your pack mates, which essentially allows you to discuss what you are doing in the middle of battle. Because essentially, if you were in a battle, in character, you don't have time to talk, to coordinate. You can't say, oh yeah, you go attack this guy and so on. But while you're role-playing the fight, you can, out of character, talk to your pack mates and coordinate in a way that makes sense and optimizes things. And that represents how united a pack is, how coordinated they are, and how used they are to working with each other. Part of that, obviously, is knowing your pack mates, but part of that is also a lot having a spiritual link that ties everyone together. So because of that, a pack is more than a bunch of friends. Pack is very close to essentially having family. It's not tied by blood, but it's a very important unit. Your pack mates are people that you will die for. no hesitation. They are almost a part of you. And in a certain way, the totem is the authority figure in a certain way of the pack. It is the entity that the pack goes to when they don't know what to do anymore, when they need guidance, when they need advice, essentially. So it's usually a good idea to have a thurge in most packs, so that you have someone who is good with not only talking to spirits, because you need a supernatural power for that. It's known as a gift. You need a gift to even understand what the spirit is saying. But a thurge will take it an extra step. It won't just understand what it's saying. It's also going to... The thurge will also have experience in understanding what the hell it means. Because a totem can be very mystical, can be very obtuse, or very straightforward. It really depends on which spirit we're talking about. So that's one of the two social units of werewolves I wanted to discuss. The other social unit I want to talk about is a sept. But before I can explain what a sept is, it's not going to make sense on its own until I explain what a cairn is. In the game, you may have noticed about halfway through, we passed by what the game refers to as a place of power. In the context of werewolf, that's very important. A place of power can be a lot of different things, and it can mean a lot of different things as well for different supernatural entities. For example, mages also really like places of power. Which they call nodes and use to fuel a lot of their magics. For werewolves, the way they see a place of power, they see it as a place that was literally touched by Gaia herself. So for them, a place of power is essentially religious by nature. It is a sacred place. It is a church. It is something they have to protect. So what they will usually do when they find a place of power, they will gather around it and they will perform a very dangerous and difficult ritual, which will open up this place of power and make it into a cairn. And usually they will, well, not usually, they will absolutely, every time, if they open a cairn, they will settle down near it. They will form a regroupment of several packs. It can be any number, but usually between 8 to 50 individuals, roughly, will work together. Several packs will gang up together to form what's known as a sept, to protect that cairn. If you're coming from a vampire perspective, you're probably used to having all kinds of stations, such as the harpies or the sheriff, that kind of thing. In werewolf, the sept is where this happens. They also have several stations. You have the warder, who's in charge of defense. You've got the wormfoe, who's in charge of offense. The job being to track down enemies of Gaia, tracking down the worms and planning raids. You've got the gatekeeper, who's in charge of welcoming visitors. You've got keepers of the land, who's in charge of making sure that all the spirits who live on the sept / cairn is happy. All kinds of things. There's many stations. I won't go through all of them, but just to give you essentially an idea. So what I'm thinking is that the forest where we are playing right now has a cairn in it. I'm convinced that's the case. Mostly because they literally said there was a place of power in it, and the character that I believe to be a thurge went to meditate near that place of power, essentially. The cairn can be very big in terms of... Let me rephrase that. When you open a place of power. The direct area where that place of power is, that's known as the Cairn Heart. When that's open, the line between reality and the spirit world just essentially disappears in the direct area around the heart. You can literally step from one world to another just by walking, no effort necessary. You just need to want to cross over, and it just happens instantly. And that place of power will have a spiritual influence around itself for a very big distance. It can be several kilometers. Unfortunately, I don't remember by heart what these distances are, but the fact is that Cairn can be pretty big. Easily 10 kilometers from what I can remember up the top of my head. So it's a large area. This spiritual energy that permeates this area around the heart is something that creatures with noses can sense. They know right away when they step through that spiritual barrier known as a bond. And they have several rituals and gifts that they can use to take advantage of that in several ways. For example, making the whole area essentially invisible to anyone who isn't a member of the Sept, and things like that. There's a lot of possibilities right there. Now in the game, again, I'm very sure we literally stepped into a cairn. What's curious in this case is that werewolves have let a random person walk right there, walk all the way to the heart, along with 2 or 3 other people who were normal humans. That's a bit odd, but there's probably a good explanation for it. In the books, it's something that it's not that impossible, but it would be pretty rare, because werewolves do not mess around when it comes to protecting their cairns. They will usually have people who will patrol around it, making sure that no one gets anywhere near the Cairn Heart, which is sacred above all other places on the cairn. Certainly, that's not a place that I believe they would let humans go near most of the time. But there are some exceptions to that overprotectiveness rule, especially when we are talking usually about urban cairns, because that can happen. There are cairns that are literally inside office buildings, when you're thinking about glasswalkers, for example. And if they have normal human employees, well, they have normal human employees. They need them to run the business. So obviously humans would be allowed on the premises. Probably not all the way to the Cairn Heart itself, but in the building for sure. There are also cairns that are canonically in literally public places. Like literally there is a cairn in Central Park in New York. It is run by bone hours, but it's there. It's absolutely there, and I mean, humans can go wherever the heck they want. It's a public place, it's a park. So I'm thinking we're probably in a very similar situation here in Heart of the Forest, where I assume, because in the real world, humans are probably able to go wherever they want in the forest. Maybe the developers went with that version, essentially, where werewolves are used to having humans walk around and they just make do with it as best as they can, because they cannot stop it. And I think that makes sense in this case, if only because, if you remember, getting to the heart itself was not easy. The forest allowed it in the story that we had. Also, there was a bit there where another character, which I believe is a werewolf, literally told our character, here's a rock, and just throw it. Throw it in the direction you feel is the right direction, and that's the direction we're going to walk in. So it was a spiritual experience to let our instincts lead us, that allowed us to go to the Cairn Heart, essentially. And I'm assuming those werewolves allowed Maya to go there because it worked, and allowed the humans to go there, once again, because it worked. The assumption here being that if it worked, that means the forest is okay with it. And if the forest is okay with it, and if we're on the cairn, probably the Karen totem is okay with it as well, which takes us back to Weasel. In werewolf, packs have totems, and Karens have totems as well. In fact, you cannot have a Karen until a powerful spirit agrees to tie itself to the Karen. It's part of a spiritual system, essentially, a spiritual energy system, a bit of a back and forth. The Karen feeds itself on the spirit feeds the spirit as well. It allows the whole thing to be stable, essentially. And then the werewolves come on top of that, and they take part in this cycle every month with a ritual known as a moot, where they replenish the spiritual energies of the sept. We're not going to go into that today because it's not relevant to the game, but my theory, now that everything has been explained, is that Weasel is actually the Karen totem. And I think that is a very, very good choice that the developers have made here, because I've looked into it. Last time I didn't remember by heart what Weasel was all about, but I've looked into it in between the last week and now. And Weasel is actually all about teaching about this decisive sudden strikes, about essentially his followers, the werewolves who follow him, are usually relentless, sneaky, and reckless people, which I think makes sense with what the story seems to be going towards, in the sense that we have an enemy, an unknown enemy here, who is most likely attacking the Karen with the logging that they said was happening, the big machines that are just chopping down trees. That's in werewolves, that's a very common way to attack a Karen, and attacking werewolves themselves. There is a company known as Pentex, roughly, that is just evil. Think Wolfram and Hart from Angel, and you'll be pretty much on the money. And they attack werewolves all the time, and this is one of very common ways they do it. They essentially purchase terrain or make political maneuverings to end up in a situation where they force werewolves back one tree at a time, until eventually the werewolves have to fight back, and it potentially revealing themselves, or just end up in a big all-out brawl where the enemy was just, oh, there you are, found you, and they go on an all-out offensive, or that kind of thing. Sorry. It happens a lot in werewolves, and I'm thinking it might not be Pentex, but it could be any number of enemies of the werewolves doing something similar here. So a spirit that is about guerrilla tactics type approach makes sense in the context of defending the Karen against that kind of sneaky approach. I'm expecting we may have to sabotage equipment or things like that as we go through the story. I don't know. But I'm very, very eager to find out. So that was another 15-20 minutes of me just babbling on about werewolf. That is more than enough. So let's go back to the game now that this has been properly explained. Tonight, as I mentioned before, I will be going for an ahroun playthrough. So I will do everything I can to gain as much rage as I can. And I will never spend willpower to refrain myself from being angry or expending rage, that sort of thing, which, depending on how this plays out, may make me sound like a jerk tonight. I apologize in advance for the actions the character is going to take. I'm just trying to aim for an ahroun auspice by the time we're done. So let's see if we can manage it. By the way, last time we were aiming for Ragabash and we got Philodux, and I've thought back about it, and I believe that is because there were 2 or 3 times where I kept my rage instead of spending it. So I remained at 1 point of rage for most of the playthrough instead of taking actions that would take me to 0 rage. And I'm thinking maybe those are the choices that that made it impossible for me to be Ragabash. That's just a theory. I don't know yet. We'll find out. Maybe if taking the completely opposite approach will be enough to get us the ahroun this time. Prologue, premonition. Start the chapter. Let me just take a quick look at the chat. Okay, no conversation yet, but we are a bunch in there. Perfect. Hello, guys. Sorry. Hello, Septmates. Thanks for coming. Make yourselves comfortable around the campfire. For those that are used to this, I'm sure you're familiar with the game already. For newcomers, if you have any questions, or actually veterans and or newcomers, feel free. Just if you have any questions or comments, go ahead as we're going. I'm always glad to take a quick break from the game and talk to you based on anything you might have to say, or answer any questions about werewolf you might have as we go. So, let's get this going. Hello, TG Spark. Thanks for coming. Happy to see you here. So, this is a game about rage. How it helps us do things that need to be done, as well as things that we later regret. It's kind of what I said earlier. I'm thinking we're going to regret a lot of things tonight. Sometimes both. How do you feel about that? Great! I'm always angry. Your rage is high. So, you're the inspired warrior type. Well, we're already talking about being a warrior. That's a good start for being ahroun for sure. That's okay. There's no right path here. Just your decisions and their consequences. Yeah, fuck the consequences. Brave one. Excellent. We're on a roll. The forest. The woods are full of stars. They flicker. Come closer, run away. They want me to chase them. To play hide and seek. In the past, we've always taken observe. Tonight we're hunting. They dance around the tree trunks, float up on the gusts of wind and shiver through the branches, disappear among the leaves. I let out an owl, eager to run with them. I want everyone to know I'm there. Then they bunch up and fly towards me like an arrow. Rushing down, they're soon upon me. But just before the spear of light pierces my breast, they disappear and the dark of night returns. In the darkness, I feel the tangled roots of stories keeping the forest alive, and I finally catch the scent of the enemy. I jump forward, and then I wake up. Cold and alone. Confused, I open my eyes. The forest around me is thick, dark, and reeks of decay to such an extent that it's hard to breathe. Something is rotten. I know the forest. Why am I here? Something is rotten. Let's try something new. The stench, both fascinating and repulsive, is everywhere. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly in dark-leaved ivy, are covered in ripples of lichen where the vines haven't taken hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at their base are overrun with nettles. The fungi radiate with a ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark, sponge-like mushrooms cling to the fallen trees. I try to breathe. I'm cold. Something is wrong. Let's expect the worst. We're ahroun now. We need to be always alert, always ready. I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. I look down and see my hands covered in a dark substance. I'm naked. A sticky, glistening film of liquid is clinging to my skin. I can feel it on my face, in my hair. Blood. I shout at the forest, or what's happening? Definitely shouting at the forest. Very interesting choice here. Don't remember having that last time. I start to scream from the bottom of my lungs. A long, guttural, terrifying roar that no one hears. The scream wakes something deep inside my chest, and then I see. There is a severed head right in front of me. We're going to be spending willpower because we're badass enough to touch it. And the other option is going to remove rage, and I don't want to do that. Overcoming my disgust, I gently touch its wet hair and watch as the head topples over. Some choices are hard to make, and they strain your willpower. The face is contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open as though the head were still struggling for air. I pick it up without thinking, high on adrenaline, and then eyes open in the darkness. The enemy! I can see their silhouettes, shades of jet black against the darkness. They reek of metal and acid and oil and money. Massive creatures, some with mandibles, some with spidery legs. Their faceted eyes burn like small industrial furnaces. I look at them, and something wakes inside my chest. Rage! We did not have that last time. If you notice here, it literally says the only reason I have that option is because I have a high rage. Already I get the feeling of being literally what I am, a rageful beast. That's cool. They're, once again, nailing the feel. I throw the head in the direction of the shining eyes and launch myself into the air. My whole body sings with the rush of adrenaline. I descend and sink my teeth into the neck of a monster that was stupid enough to stand in my way. In a moment of clarity, I almost understand what the forest wants from me. And then I wake up. Chapter 1. Arrival. So far the differences are minimal, but critical, I would say. I definitely feel like the choices that I have now fit with the mood that I'm going for. I'm already all about rage, all about screaming, all about growling, and that was just within 5 or 6 clicks of the beginning of the game. I already feel like this is well, it's not completely different, but the ambiance, the mood, and the tone is already completely different just by changing the way they're wording my choices, essentially. Maya, wake up! I jerked upright, irritated. My neck was stiff, and the movement sent a sudden, sharp wave of discomfort through my body. I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was sat on a bus. The sun streaming through the windows was making it hard to see. The girl next to me was touching my shoulder, disturbed. So here, I can spend a willpower to resist snapping back, or I could snap back, which I'm going to do. Which is already very interesting because the last time we played, we didn't have that. We didn't snap at all. We were completely fine with being woken up by, I forget the name of this character, but we'll know very soon. So already I feel the difference between having a lot of rage and not at all. It's definitely there, and I feel it right away, which is pretty cool. Yes, Anya. Yeah, thank you, Staniel. I do believe the name is Anya. We'll know in a few seconds for sure, but I unless she's here already, no, she's not. Right. Right, I tried asking the developers what the glyphs were, if our guess was correct. Unfortunately, I did not get an answer on that just yet. I'm sure they're just very busy. But I did have confirmation that the developers have watched the stream last week, which is just wow. I mean, as a fan of their game, knowing that they are watching my stream, that is mind-blowing in itself. Once again, if you're watching this as you did last week, thank you so very much for watching it. Literally, I am honored. Quite literally, no way around it. I am honored that you are watching my stream and apparently liking it from the feedback that I got. That really, it made my week last week, knowing that, and I'm just over the moon that you like what you hear. So welcome around the campfire. Thank you. So here we are, back on the bus, same sound effects, same situation. We missed it, but there was also, last week I noticed there was an effect of, oh, it's there, it's back. Trees going through, on the window essentially as they pass by. And I realize now it seems also to be timed with the sound of the van. No, my mistake. It just happened to move at the same time as the sound effect. Still, pretty cool effect. So let's be a jerk. I pushed her away. With a second thought, I pushed her away. Without a second thought, I pushed her away, adrenaline surging through me. When your rage is high, you might say and do things you later regret. What's wrong with you? She recoiled, looking hurt and scared. It was a while before she said anything. You were singing, I guess, in your sleep. I blinked. The memory of the dream was still there, and the overwhelming smell of the old forest. I looked outside, or I was glad I wasn't alone. I know last time we said I was glad I wasn't alone. I still feel it's appropriate here for an ahroun because they still want companionship. As we said before, Nomad was saying ahrouns are not necessarily jerks, and that's completely true. They like people. They like having people around them as much as anybody else. The problem is that they can't always control their supernatural rage. That said, on principle, I'm going to purposefully go with I looked outside just because I remember that this is what we took last time, and I'm trying to get something a bit different. I must have bitten my lip, I thought as I ran my tongue over my teeth. The forest outside the window was watching me. The girl next to me shook her head. Thank God, we're almost there. Her name was Anya. Yeah, Stan was completely right. We'd met a couple of weeks earlier on the orientation day. She was from Norway, a tall, broad-shouldered, calm person who wore her long hair in braids. Somehow, I'd managed to talk her into this crazy field trip across the land of my ancestors. We were there to study medicine, or she was having second thoughts. Well, I've been a ball of rage, and I assume I've been a wall of rage in the past weeks as well, so I'm gonna go with Anna's cautious. Anya reached into her backpack and took out an apple. She turned away from me and bit into the fruit. Before I proceed, by the way, chat, could you let me know if the sound is okay? I've had comments last time that the music of the game was a bit loud over me. I believe I fixed it, but could you just let me know, please? Good for me. Perfect. Thank you. She turned away from me and bit into the fruit. I reached into my bag and fished out a bunch of cabanossi, dried meaty sausages that were so much better than the original polished ones back in the US. Anya still looked like she regretted meeting me. People often did, actually. Girl, you're a lot to handle, she said after a lengthy silence. I'm not sure if I have the bandwidth for so much drama in my life. Trip was my idea. Our summer language course was starting in a few weeks, and I managed to talk Anya into skipping the tours of concentration camps and old churches and visiting Białowieża National Park with me instead. Ooh, by the way, speaking of Białowieża, I've had confirmation that I'm actually pronouncing it okay. Didn't know, just happy it managed to do it. I can't take credit though. I don't know if I said that before, but actually Outstar, which is a prominent member of the World of Darkness community, she actually handles pretty much everything that has to do with being the face essentially of the World of Darkness. She handles a lot of their communications and their weekly stream, the World of Darkness News, I believe it's called. And she made a video shortly after the initial press release of this demo, teaching people how to pronounce Białowieża and Puszcza Białowieska. And I literally took it from her. I listened to her video on repeat and wrote down how it sounded to make sure I would be able to approximate how to say it. And from what I've been told, it's not bad. So thank you very much, Outstar, for your help. Literally could not have done without you. So, remind me, why are we here again? She asked with her arms crossed. Good question. Why were we there? There being Białowieża, a small village in northeast Poland near the border with Belarus. It was famous for its national park, the very last European bison. And according to a quick web search, occasional tensions between far-right troublemakers and the local Belarusian community. The most honest answer would have been, because I've been dreaming about the forest in Białowieża. Notice I'm pronouncing it okay, but every time I have to say it, there's a pause. That's because I have a post-it right there with how to pronounce it. I still can't just say it. I need to read it. My version of it anyway. I've been dreaming about the forest in Białowieża since I can remember, but people didn't understand when I said things like that. I looked her in the eyes. TG Sparks says, really not bad of what I remember of my Polish. Good job. Thank you so very much, man. Thank you. I kept it simple so I wouldn't freak her out. I told her as much as I could, or I told her everything. Well, ahrouns are not known for subtlety, so I told her everything. Notice I have no longer any willpower left. That should be interesting in itself. I've always had these dreams where I'm in this forest, and it speaks to me, I said hesitantly. I'm not sure why, but I feel like I'm supposed to be here. Only my grandfather understood the dreams. Respect the forest, he would say, and pay attention to your dreams. It was all I got from that part of the family before my mom took me, ran away and cut off all contact with my dad. I think last time we had information about the mom, but there was nothing, there was nothing about the grandfather. We did hear about the grandfather in the very, very first time we played this, the quick 10-minute preview where we were aiming for Philodox. I instantly regretted saying anything, or I waited for her to respond. Let's regret things. I said tonight we would regret things, so let's go ahead. Anya took her time to answer, and with every passing second, I felt more humiliated and angrier at myself. Wow, that's intense. She looked at me with what seemed like respect. I wouldn't dare tell anyone a story like that. Anya is neutral. Oh, okay. We got her from cautious to neutral. Nice. You know what? Let's see how it rolls, she said at last with a smile. If your drama becomes too much for me, I'll just split and go sightseeing by myself. So that's where we stood. Anya joined you for now. And that was precisely why I needed to do something. Anything about that damn forest and my weird-ass family. I had to face the forest. I had to learn the truth about my roots, or I had to figure out my future. We are going on the offensive path, so we're facing the forest. This time we're going to be confronting things. My dreams, my grandfather's stories, the fact my family was from there were just too many coincidences. The forest wanted something from me, and it was time to find out what. I never was one to sit idly by as things happened to me. Welcome home. No, actually, welcome home. Your willpower dropped to 0. When you lose all your health or willpower, you become impaired. This will make physical tasks if you have 0 health, or social and mental tasks if you have 0 willpower harder, and sometimes impossible. Białowieża looked like an overexposed photo of a village with the contrast turned all the way up. The sun wasn't just shining, it was shouting at the earth. And everything, the trees, grass, the wooden houses, the fences, seemed weathered. Everything except the shadows. They were sharp, as though they were freshly printed with the darkest of inks, and they moved. For a second, I could have sworn they'd moved, but then I realized it was just a black cat walking down the sidewalk. When it saw me, it stopped in its tracks. That's another thing we can discuss quickly. Last week, I skipped it on purpose. I didn't want to overwhelm you with all kinds of random lore, but I'm going to do it now. In Werewolf the Apocalypse, I very briefly mentioned that there was a notion of a curse for werewolves, but that the condition itself was not a curse. That is absolutely true, but there is still a curse. And we don't quite know where the curse comes from or why it's there. Much later in the World of Darkness, because essentially around the beginning of the years 2000, the World of Darkness ended. There was a series of books that came out that essentially closed all the storylines and the story hooks of all of the game lines. And around that period, they actually released, just a few years before that, they released a new game, the last supernatural race, essentially, that would be playable. TG Spark says, I can't stay much longer, but I'll check it again later when it's going to be available. Thanks, my friend. Thank you so very much for coming, TG Spark. It's always a pleasure to have you around, whether it's in real life or on my stream. Thank you for coming, and talk to you soon. Thanks. So that was Demon the Fallen, and when Demon the Fallen came out, a lot of the lore that they had tried to explain the other supernatural races. Not a big fan of that approach, because essentially the other races didn't need it. They already had origin stories. They did not need a new one. For example, as I explained last time, werewolves were created by Gaia, so suddenly having demons pop around and say, yeah, no, that's crap. We made you. We made everything. Didn't really sit too well with me, but I mean, that's, I guess, what happened. However, one of the things that has always stuck with me is that there was never a good explanation for the curse in Werewolf the Apocalypse, and it was specifically stated in Demon that they were the ones who put the curse on the werewolves because of something they did a long time ago known as the Impergium, which was a really dark time in human and werewolf history. I won't get into that right now, but to me, that gave a bit of credibility to Demon, and maybe what they were saying was not senseless. Essentially, maybe they had a point. Maybe it was true what they were saying, because well, they knew about the curse, whereas essentially but no one else knew about it, and werewolves probably, some of them might not even be aware that it's there. But what is it? Essentially, the curse is essentially that animals and humans sense your rage. The more rage you have, the more difficult it is for you to reach out and have a conversation with humans, or even approach an animal. So the typical image that you might think of in a movie of a werewolf just like crawling through a village, medieval village or something, and just having like animals go completely crazy, even though they haven't smelled anything, they haven't seen the creature, they're just going wild, they're just going, what the heck is happening? They feel danger, they feel a predator approaching. That is the curse. That's what it does. And unless you're really, really, really good at handling animals, you will not be able, as a werewolf, to approach one. You'll probably never pet a dog or a cat. Not if you have rage on you. That's probably not going to happen. So for an ahroun, for example, like we're playing, forget it. It's not going to happen. Personally, I don't like the curse. I don't play with it because I feel it's counterproductive, in the sense that Gaia wants werewolves to mingle with humans. That's the whole point. As we discussed last time, werewolves predate humanity, and eventually when humans came around, Gaia said, you know what, you're gonna mingle, you're gonna reproduce with them, and that way eventually you will earn a fifth form, because back then they only had 4 forms. You're gonna gain the Ahmed form, and a bunch of other shapeshifters have similar stories, like the Mokoli, for example, were lizards more or less. They used to have their equivalent of Ahmed form was more of a dinosaur, bipedal dinosaur type form, humanoid dinosaur type form, and eventually they lost that form and it got replaced by a Ahmed form. Same story. Gaia came down and said, you know what, you're gonna mingle with those humans, you're gonna reproduce with them. And once again, one of the laws that werewolves have in the litany is Garou shall not mate with Garou. That rule, that law is there because Gaia wants werewolves to care about humanity. She wants them to not see humans as cattle or things to put in cage and hunt, essentially. I said I wouldn't talk about the Impergium, but there it is. I'm going to. That's what they did, essentially, a long time ago. The books don't put a date to it. At least I don't think it does. But several millennia ago, werewolves literally felt like humans had to be controlled and restrained unless they would spread too wide and become a problem. Which turns out they did, as we can see, with all the pollution and all the problems in the world. But it was still wrong to do it, and werewolves eventually figured out that it was wrong to do that, so they stopped the Impergium. And that still left a mark in humans. To this day, a human that sees a werewolf in its war form will just, his psyche will just snap, essentially. Humans cannot bear to look at a werewolf in its war form. It's not just terrifying, it is instinctually terrifying. It's like part of them remembers the primal horror of going through the Imperium thousands of years ago. It didn't traumatize the individual, it literally traumatized the entire species. So, still, gonna close those parentheses a bit. point is, Gaia doesn't want that. She does not want that. She wants werewolves to care about humans, to care about their kinfolk and normal humans as well. That's why she put that law there. So having a curse that is not really explained in-game until the last year or so, before they stopped making World of Darkness books, by a completely different supernatural race, was just weird. It prevented werewolves from connecting with humans, and it made certain tribes actually make very little sense, like glasswalkers who literally live among humans. Like, for example, for a glasswalker, their definitions of auspices are a little bit different. For example, an ahroun for a glasswalker isn't necessarily someone who goes around taking the shape of a big clawed monster and just ripping everything apart. For them, an ahroun would be, for example, something that is a lawyer, someone that's going to go on the offensive using the law to get results and fight their enemies this way. But how can you be a lawyer when humans don't want to be in the same room as you? Because you, as an ahroun, you have 5 points of rage. You just have that, you start with it. Sure, you can compensate by buying a bunch of points of willpower and gnosis and all kinds of merits to try to downplay that, but the default is that the entire tribe doesn't work with the concept of curse. Anyway, the curse is there. It's canonical, it's in the book. I don't like it, I don't play with it, but it's there. I'm curious to see what this game is going to do with the curse, and especially since they seem like they're last time they have introduced this cat and they're doing it here again. Last time we were low rage, so I didn't make much of it, but right now we're maxed out in rage. We've got, I'll do it with my mouse, we've got 3 points of rage, and even earlier when we were dreaming we had 5 points of rage. Now it looks like we're limited to 3 of each of these stats right now, and that could be because we are in Omid form. In the dream we are, as I remember, we're actually Krynos, which is the war form, so maybe that's why those stats could go higher. I don't know. We'll know more as we play the real game. So here I'm curious. I was really looking forward to this cat because I wanted to see how we would be able to interact with it this time that we have a bunch of rage. Okay, so I tried to pet it, I watched it with suspicion, or the whole scene felt weird. Don't remember what I took last time, but I'm pretty sure I didn't try to pet it. Tonight I'm going to, specifically and on purpose, because I'm filled with rage. I want to see how this game handles the curse, if at all. I'm fine with both. If they ignore the curse as I usually do, I think that's the right call. If they don't, I mean, I trust them. They have absolutely earned my trust. They know what they're doing. Different Tales understands werewolf really well, so I'm very curious to see how they deal with it, essentially. I mean, the curse done right is something I would like to see. Here, kitty kitty, I said, squatting and reaching toward the cat. In a flash, see, here, I think they're going for it. Just because I have high rage, it's not me doing something. I have high rage, and the cat didn't like me right away. So they're going, I think they're going with the curse, and I'm loving it. In a flash, it swatted my hand away with its paw. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Drawing a few drops of blood, I yelped. "Hey, Maya," Anya said, looking at me surprised. "Didn't you say your friend would be waiting for us?" But he wasn't there, and the cat was still staring at me. "Let's go, Anya. Let's go." Anya put on her backpack. I'm tired, and I really, really need to find a toilet. Okay, 0 willpower. I didn't know what to do. I was too tired and distracted to think clearly. My friend was nowhere in sight. I stormed off. or but the meeting was too important. This is really, really cool. Another example of different tales knowing how to give mood with just the way they write my choices. Last time I could say but the meeting was just too important, which I did. But the other option was something about going along with Anya. But this time it's just, I'm freaking pissed off and I'm storming off. I love it. I'm taking that. I grabbed my backpack and started walking. I hate when people are late, I muttered under my breath. I was talking fast and it took a while for Anya to catch up with me. This is perfect. This is so spot on. And we just skipped a whole section here where we are meeting with the character that takes us into the woods. I have no idea where the story is going to go from now because he's the one who takes us there. What's going to happen if we don't have a guide? I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Biała Wieża had a few hotels and hostels, but the preferred form of accommodation was bed and breakfasts. That's where we stayed. I found one that was nice, clean, and that had good reviews. We had a room on the second floor with a huge window and a great view of the forest. We dropped off our stuff and freshened up a bit. Maybe we should have waited for your friend, Anya asked, concerned. I shrugged. I'll find him sooner or later. Before you go, check out your character's sheet. Look for it in the upper right corner of the screen. You can find a load of useful information about Maya, her background, personality, goals, and so on there. You can also check who your friends and who your enemies are. Biała Wieża was a quaint tourist town, but I had other things in mind. Let's actually do that. We are doing good. 4 points in brave, 2 in inspiring, and 1 in analytical. So once again, those pretty directly fit with one of the auspices, but inspiring, despite here clearly representing the Galliard auspice, is something that is important for ahrouns as well. Ahrouns are supposed to inspire others to acts of great heroism, so I'm pretty happy, honestly, with what we're having here today. Interesting. Because we don't have willpower, we are impaired. That's what it said before, but I'm pointing it out because condition is a role-playing term. I think it was introduced in Dungeons & Dragons, but it was also picked up with the second edition of a lot of the new World of Darkness that is now known as the Chronicle of Darkness. And I think it's also in Vampire 5th edition. So I'm not sure, because I only read Vampire 5th edition once. I'm going to have to read it again before Werewolf comes out. But this actually could mean that conditions are a thing in Werewolf. So, wild guess. Don't take my money for it. Just a wild guess. Oh, hello, Nomad. Welcome again. I don't know if you were there from the beginning, but just going to welcome you now. Thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure to have you around, you and Staniel, of course. Looking forward to talking with you again tonight. Once again, if you have any questions, any comments, please go ahead. But I had other things in mind. The lay of the land. I had a clear goal in mind. The forest was calling me, and I was ready to answer the call. Anya went with you. I have to admit, I'm a bit surprised. I was fully expecting that we would be, by now, that Anya would have ditched us. I'm not sure what I did for getting her to stick with me. I think it was the choice that I made that got her to say, you know what, if you give me too much drama, I'll just leave then. But I think what I said right before that, when I explained my entire situation and my entire background, yes, Sanel says inspired with honesty. Exactly. I think that's exactly what happened. Because I was open, because I told her everything, I think that's why she stuck around. That's very interesting. So here's where we are. Last time I thought it was a choice, but no. What I realized later is that Biała Wieża town here is where we were, and we are leaving there and going other places. In the actual game, there's probably going to be several options, but right now these are the only two locations. So obviously, the only place we can go is the forest I dreamed about. Into the woods. It was dark in the woods, dark, humid, and chilly. The leaves didn't let through a lot of the sunlight. Daniel looked at Anya and me over his shoulder. How do you like her? We'd met maybe 20 minutes earlier. Anya had googled local guides, and he was apparently the best person to go to if you wanted to see the forest. So I found him, and now here we were. Okay, so that's how they fixed it. Last time, the person I met with, the local who lived in the town, was the person who introduced us to Daniel. And now Anya did the research. I wonder what would have happened if we didn't have Anya. I assume they would have just said that Maya Googled it. I don't know. Maybe in a future playthrough we'll find out. Really sorry. I wasn't sure whom he met, or he was a strange one. I think last time we said that. I'm just going to go with he was a strange one because I'm not very good with people. As an ahroun, I mean. Daniel was a strange guy, slender but muscular, not the CrossFit type. It was more the kind of strength you get from working all day long in the open. His skin was weather-beaten and bronzed by the sun, like tanned leather, and he moved in a very deliberate way. But his fingers were slim and delicate, and his eyes were the strangest shade of yellow-green. So, he repeated, how do you like her? I wasn't sure whom he meant. You mean the forest? I asked. Polish was a strange language that gave the most unexpected genders to objects and ideas. I mean, puszta, he gestured around us. The word sounded like the wind rustling in the leaves. Puszta. Puszta is the right word, not forest. Forests are like fields or orchids, cultivated, he spat as he said it. And Puszta, she is older than even the concept of fields. He was using the word as though it was a name. I stood there and watched the forest, or I looked at the Puszta again. So I guess one of them acknowledges that the forest is an entity. The other one is just like, nah, that's a forest. I'm going to go with that. I'm trying to get a different gameplay than last time. We were surprisingly spiritual last time. It made sense. I'm not criticizing the game at all. It made complete sense with what we were going. I just wasn't aiming to be spiritual specifically. It just happened that way. I looked around with fresh eyes. I felt as though I'd entered an ancient battleground. Gigantic trees were locked in century-long wars for a place in the sun as the trunks of fallen foes decomposed slowly at their feet. Young plants and colorful mushrooms were fighting their own battles over the rotting remains. The trees that still lived stretched toward the sky like columns holding up the vaulted canopy, which blocked out all but a few rays of sunlight. Something moved in the leaves. I fought the urge to chase it. I loved what I saw. It was alien, or there was something unsettling about it all. So as I said last week, some choices seem arbitrary in the sense that how would I know what I saw if you don't explain it, so why do I get a choice? But this game actually allows you to shape the story literally. Sentinel says, yes, they do. Oh, right. I think Sentinel is referring to the fact that these storytellers get werewolves. They so do. She also says, I don't think we had that battlefield feeling last time. I like this giving we are aiming. Yeah, absolutely. I like this giving we are aiming for ahroun. Absolutely. Stanu is spot on here. When you are writing a text, there's a technique that is usually a good idea to do before you start writing. It is essentially looking for specific keywords to spread around your text that gives a specific feel. And a couple of times here as I was playing this game, I get the feeling that this is an exercise that they did, whether that was intentional or not, or just happened that way. But sometimes the difference between my first playthrough and this playthrough is a single word or just a single sentence. It's not a lot, but it is enough. It allows them to go through the same story, but me as a player have a completely different experience. I'm having a playthrough right now of a warrior, someone who's confrontational, whereas last time I didn't get that at all. I was calm. I was reading through something that was more spiritual, and I hope you can feel it in my reading when I say it out loud. I'm trying as I'm reading. I'm way more intense than I was last week. And the text is feeding me that. It's not something that I'm doing intentionally. It's just what I'm reading gives me feelings that are completely different than last week, and just because of a few keywords. I looked around with fresh eyes. Right, okay, so we read that. The trees that still... Okay, right, sorry. We saw something in the leaves and fought the urge to chase it. So here the game is letting me choose what I saw, essentially. The game is giving me control. I loved what I saw. It was alien, or there was something unsettling about it all. I'm not sure I see the difference between those two, but I'm pretty sure this is not what we want to do as an ahroun. We want something that we will want to confront, something that we will want to face. Something alien is not necessarily unsettling, is something unknown. So I'm going to go with unsettling. I think is a stronger feeling that might lead us to be more confrontational about it. It's unsettling, I admitted. He smiled and nodded. It is. You're smart. Then I remembered why I was there. I explained to him why I was interested in the forest, or I asked him about local legends. I'm going to be very forward about things once again, being an ahroun. There's a special reason I'm interested in the forest, I admitted. I'm not from here, but my family was, I continued. And I think something secret connects me to this place. I dream about the forest a lot. Daniel stopped abruptly and turned to me, watching me for a while. His nostrils flared as though he were tasting the air. Daniel is neutral. Maybe. You seem familiar. He tilted his head. Your forefathers did something many winters past, and Pushta still remembers. Come on, he started walking. I know exactly what you need to see. That piqued my interest. Okay, that touches with a notion we had last time, where things that took us closer to our goal would give us willpower. Last time, I believe our goal was to learn about our ancestors. Now our goal is to learn about the forest. Interesting. So I was right. There was something hidden in my family's past, and it seemed to have a lot to do with the forest. Every time you learn or do something significant that brings you closer to your goal, you regain willpower. With every step, I was getting closer to solving the mystery, so I followed him. Okay, now I'm going to need the cooperation of the chat for this one. Last time we did Place of Power, then Barrows. I want to know, would you like me to do the same pattern to see how it's different due to the choices we made so far? Or do it in a different order to see how the story is different if you don't see the places before? I'm not quite sure which would be best here. There didn't seem to be that much overlap between the locations, so I'm not sure that doing it in a different order would give a lot of difference to it. But I'd like your idea on it. Please let me know what you want. Place of Power or Wolf's Den or Barrows. Go to Graves. That's the Barrow. Okay, that's one vote from Stano. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. Another vote for the Barrows. Very well. Barrows it is. Just one small thing. We started walking, but after a few steps he stopped abruptly like he'd remembered something. Then he turned to me. Could you humor me, please? He asked. It depended, or why should I? That sounds confrontational. I'm taking that. You haven't given me a reason to blindly trust you, I scoffed. He ran his hand through the moss on the dead tree trunk, smelled his fingers, and then reached into his pocket. He took out a small stone. Too small to be a weapon? Something personal? Or it was just a stone? Last time we took, it was just a stone. Right now I'm going to go with the weapon. Exactly. There we go. We got bravery because of that. It felt like an ahroun choice. Looking at something and go like, yeah, you can't hurt me with that. It was barely a pebble. Too small to pose a threat, although the brown spots on its surface looked like dried blood. The game tracks her decisions on how Maya approaches problems. They will accumulate and gradually reveal what kind of a person she is, deep in her heart. The story changes to reflect Maya's personality. I would like you to take this stone. He held out his open hand toward me, and throw it in the direction you think we should go. Interesting, actually, because we have a willpower now. And earlier, I believe it said when you don't have a willpower, that's when you get impaired. But we're still impaired despite getting a willpower back. Don't know if that's intentional or if I misunderstood something. Interesting. Should I humor him or should I go with doubting him? What do you guys think? What do you Septmates think? I feel like this is a bit more confrontational, but not... It's not very confrontational, so... Doubting? Yeah. Okay, yeah, we're going with doubting. Okay, Stanel is right. What? Why? I wasn't convinced. It's something I need. Can you do it, please? He was intense. And I will be intense as well. I said I was going to be a bit of a jerk, so let's go be a bit of a jerk. Hell no! Pushka. Cautious. Last time, Pushka was loyal to us. Not here, but close to here. Nah, I don't think so. I shook my head. He sighed and closed his hand around the stone. Then he lifted his fist to his mouth and bit it. His expression was steady as he took the hand away, opened it, took the stone, and dipped it in his own blood. Is this normal behavior here? Whispered Anya. He seemed alert, like he was waiting for something, but it wasn't my reaction, I realized. Nothing in his actions was about me. That should have reassured me, but it didn't. Something moved in the leaves above us. Then Daniel put the stone back in his pocket and nodded. Okay, let's go. What the fuck? Or I needed to stay calm. Yeah, being calm is not this version of Maya's forte, so yeah, not happening. What the fuck, man? What were you doing? He threw me one of his glances. Yeah, Sanel says, WTF, absolutely. Don't be afraid, it's just something I needed to do. he said with a smile that would have been a lot more reassuring if his teeth weren't red with his blood. With that, he turned and went on his way, or rather, our way. Interesting. Last time we did that to make our way to the place of power. Now this is taking us to the graves. Interesting. Also, last time we just threw the stone. This time we needed blood, so I'm not sure how they managed to do that, but once again, kudos to the developers. They've managed to make choices that, once again, make me feel like the auspice I'm playing. I'm going for ahroun, and we've already got blood. It's not even a combat. It's just me being a jerk and blood. Well played. The Dead Hills. The trail soon disappeared. Sometimes we walked along a barely visible path made by some animals. Sometimes we followed a stream or a gully, but for most of our trek we walked through the dense undergrowth. I was keenly aware that without Daniel, I'd have been totally and utterly lost, and I didn't feel good about that realization. The sun was barely noticeable through the dense canopy, and I had no idea which direction we were going anyway. So the last time, by the time we went to the graves, the forest was loyal to us, so Maya found the way easily because the forest helped her find her way, and now the only reason she can find her way around is because Daniel is around. And that is, of course, because Pushka is cautious. The forest does not like us this time. That is really cool. The trek was rough. Brambles tore at my calves. Burrows opened suddenly under my feet. Boughs and branches slashed at my face. I had a ridiculous thought that it was personal, that the forest wanted to stop me. Daniel was a mystery I decided to solve, or I stubbornly pushed on. Absolutely. As an ahroun, the forest pushing back, the branches, that would piss me off, so I'm stubbornly pushing on. That's perfect. I'm really glad they put that there. I settled into a steady rhythm and stubbornly pushed on. Focused on my goal, I fixed my eyes on Daniel's back and slowly zoned out, which was a mistake. Wow, okay. I didn't know how I didn't notice the roots stretching across the path. I could swear it moved on its own. I stumbled and fell, reaching blindly to shield my fall. When I landed, a shot of pain went through my hand. I bit my lip, costing willpower, or I swore. Absolutely swore. Fuck! I swore and scrambled to my feet. A sharp stone had pierced my palm. When I removed it, blood spurted out. Hush. Only prey makes noise in the pushka. Pushka, said Daniel. Anya, always prepared, disinfected the wound and helped me apply a bandage. We continued in silence. We'd been walking for a while when I noticed that Daniel's step had become slower. He was also looking around more often and had hunched slightly. Fuck, we were lost. Was it the barrows, or I just enjoyed the moment? I think last time I enjoyed the moment, or I said was it the barrels or something, but here, once again, going with the ahroun response. Don't tell me we're lost, I growled. He looked at me hurt. They're tricky to find sometimes, he mumbled. Be quiet for a minute, please. That was when I felt it. Ash in my mouth, the smell of smoke and wet soil, and a pull. I knew where to go, or I hushed him. Being a jerk. No, you shut up, I said, focused and intense. He tilted his head, puzzled. He didn't answer, instead watching me in silence. I showed him the right direction. Something wants me to go there, I pointed to my left, under a dying tree. He looked at me for another long moment. You don't know the way. My confidence disappeared, or I ignored him and started walking. Remember last time I was talking about Ragabash and how their job is to teach, among other things, humility. Because a lot of werewolves tend to be very hard-headed and do their thing and not necessarily be reasonable. Of course, a lot of that has got to do with rage. So, since I'm full of rage, I'm going to be unreasonable here. I'm just going to ignore him, start walking, and assume I know better. It's going to end badly, by the way. The game has already removed 1 health. I'm very curious to see if I can actually die. I hope not, because I'd like to see the end of this playthrough and figure out which auspice I'm in, but if I die, I die. I ignored him and moved toward the pole. He followed me, and I followed my feet, knowing exactly where they should go. Under the crooked tree, past the dead tree trunk and the sponge-like mushrooms, across the patch of wet dark green moss, all the way to a place that didn't look much different than other parts of the forest, until you noticed the elevations. There was something about the flattened hills that drew my full attention. They must have been bigger in the past, I could remember, or I felt dizzy. I'm not sure the implication of either of those, so I'm just going to go with this one. I could imagine them vividly when they were built. The tall, proud barrows, the dead decomposing underground, returning to the earth, feeding all the new life that was growing from them. The trees around us were the fingers of the dead sticking out of the ground. And then it happened. It was a feeling anchored in my chest, akin to the taste of ash in my mouth and the smell of smoke. Longing, sadness, resignation. But there was more. A sense of sacredness. It filled me with a calm excitement, and when I closed my eyes, I saw a fire burning in the darkness. Voices. The village was burning and dead bodies were scattered among the flaming buildings. My hands were dripping with blood. The dying crawled toward me, some in ancient Roman armor, some in rags, some in uniforms from the world wars, some in modern camo. Why? They asked, spitting blood and broken teeth. Why do you keep killing us? So the forest could live, or that was who I was. I feel like both of those answers are excellent ahroun answers, actually. The first one is unforgiving, like, that's who I am. I'm a warrior, I kill, that's what I do. The other one is, well, I'm a man on a, well, a woman in this case. I'm a woman on a mission. I'm doing this so that the forest can live, because essentially the forest is tantamount to my Karen. I'm gonna go with this one, because it feels right now like I might be potentially channeling an ancestor or something like that, because I'm getting images of old wars or things from the past. So it feels like we're in the perspective of a werewolf that knows what they're doing, a werewolf doing werewolf things. So I'm gonna go with that. They died so the forest could continue living. When I opened my eyes, Daniel was watching me. You were somewhere else, he said. You said you had family here? I nodded. I dodged the question, or I lied. Not that much of a jerk. Dodge the question won't help, so I nodded, because that's why I'm here, after all. I heard that my father's family came from here. I nodded. I don't know much about them, though, he sighed. I don't think you should be here, he said tersely. You're not ready. He knew something. Should not have said that. We're going for the answers, my friends. Why? What do you know? I wasn't letting it go. About you, not much, but I know the Pushta. The past is close here. His eyes were worried as he looked at me. And if the Pushta calls to you, it's wise to listen, but it's not wise to get lost in the voices. Come. On the way back, I was lost in my thoughts. The voices and the vision knew what I had to do. It's almost as though it was expected of me. Discarded, I thought, or obsessing over the concept, which is, what was this What was it the forest wanted from me? So I'm going with that. Daniel said that the Pushta had called me. Was the vision showing me what the forest needed? I accepted that thought, or I was scared. Ahrouns are not scared. Goal progressed. I smiled. A bigger picture was finally starting to come to light. The Pushta wanted me to fight. The walk back was uneventful. Okay, chat. We've got the Wolf's Den or the Place of Power next. What are we looking for? Already I'm very curious again because last time the rock thing took us to the Place of Power. And now we've already done that, which sort of implies in this playthrough that finding the Karen's heart, if that's what it is, isn't actually that hard. It's interesting. It means essentially they're allowing humans in their place of power in general, because right now we have a guide, but we could have walked right in without a guide taking us there, so very curious. So chat, what do you think? Place of Power or Wolf's Den? Power. Nomad has 1 vote for Power. Still no, it did make a difference to go to Barrow before. Correct. Correct. I feel like it has made a difference. I'm not sure we mean the same thing though. In my case, the difference is because the ritual part with the stone is already done. But did you see something I didn't? Did you notice a difference beyond that from the fact that we went to the barrows first? Before Power, we did not befriended Forest. Correct, absolutely. Also, the decisions we've made so far, like we refused to do the ritual, for example, we refused to throw the stone, we did not give in to what the forest wanted, that might have played as well. So we might have been able to go to the Place of Power first and still have the forest be cautious, potentially. By the way, is the forest still cautious? Yes, it is. Family is complicated, like last time. Pushka cautious, Daniel neutral, and neutral. So we still got 1 vote for Place of Power. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. Place of Power it is. Daniel also votes for Power, so that pretty much confirms it. A buzzing in my ears. It started with the air on the back of my hands rising. The air around me seemed brighter, lighter. Leaves on the tree trunks turned yellow and my skin started to prickle. I realized that I couldn't hear anything except for a low buzzing that was filling my ears. I was hot. My bones were vibrating, full of an energy I could not contain. I had to do something. Snap out of it. I lashed out on the nearest tree trunk. Oh wow, the forest is gonna love this. I willed it to stop or I screamed. I kind of want to go with ice cream, but I also want to indulge the fact that I have a lot of rage, so I'm gonna go with that. Not knowing what to do with all that energy, I kicked the nearest tree trunk. Look out! Anya screamed. There was a cloud of dust and rot, and the buzzing grew louder. I felt a sting, then another, and another. Wow, we pissed off a bunch of wasps or bees or something. I started to run. We may actually die, Septmates. We're down to 1 elf level. Curious if in the wolf den, if we make another call like that, if it might end very badly for us. How do you fight a hive? You don't. You just hope you can outrun it. So I ran, and I hoped. And then there was an opening, and light, real light, not the yellow buzzing, and I felt everything become still. The clearing was a plateau between huge boulders. There were double-trunked trees between the rocks and an angular wooden construction that stuck out of the ground like a sore thumb. There was a bike leaning on it. But more importantly, there was a man, and he was moving in the most beautiful, harmonious way I'd ever seen. It was hypnotizing. I couldn't stop looking at the way he moved, the way his muscles danced under his tanned skin. This man knew his body. He knew how to use it. It was his tool, his weapon. The wasps that were flying after me... Oh, cool. I thought originally when we got there and started describing the guy who I believe is a Thurge, I thought, oh, okay, so we're done with the wasp, but no. Well, we are, obviously, but they're doing something with it. The wasps that were flying after me stopped in midair, forming a ball. The man slowly moved his hands forward, like he was gently pushing them away. The hive turned around and left the clearing. The words came out of my mouth, seemingly without my knowing. This is extremely cool and completely something I would expect a Thurge to do. It's not backed by anything, though. There's no gift that I know of or power that I know of that would explain it. But, I mean, as I explained last time, Gnosis allows you to feel what the world around you feels. It's not a huge stretch to see how a really good Thurge with a high amount of Gnosis could essentially commune with the wasps and send them away. It's something that I think a storyteller would be absolutely okay to do. It's not by the rule, but I think it's absolutely fair to do. What did he do, or what was wrong with this place? I'm gonna rage against this place. What's wrong with this place? I shouted, frustrated. He stopped and looked at me. It's in pain, he said calmly. He stretched his hand toward me. I'm Cornell, he said with a hard German accent. Stenil says, I love this. Be prepared to have this come into play at a game or another. Yes, absolutely. Good point. And if I'm the storyteller, also be prepared to see that as well. This is one of the reasons why I'm very happy we're finally getting content about werewolves. I've been a storyteller for werewolf for almost 20 years now, and I've ran games for a lot of people, but essentially the same pool of 20 to 30 players, because most of the games that I do are LARPs. But that still means that we have a very particular view of werewolves and don't get a lot of new blood injected, new vision, and new way of doing things. So this, for me, is a chance to see how other people are seeing things, how other people are interpreting the setting, and how they play with the elements in it. This is a great example of it. I would have never thought about it, and I'm glad I'm seeing it, because just like Stenil right now, it's inspiring us. Like when we're next going to run stories about werewolves, I absolutely will give, maybe not low levels, maybe not someone that has, maybe 5 or lower in terms of Gnosis, but anyone with 6 or above, just want to roll for Gnosis and see if they could essentially convince lesser creatures, not lesser, but simpler creatures, let's say, to just leave or attack or something like that. Hell yeah, I'm using this now. Shouldn't you be on the logging site? Daniel asked him after I introduced myself. I needed to center myself, he answered. The others are still there. Don't worry. And by the way, I've said Thurge would be able to do this, but obviously anyone with 6 or more would be able to do it. Thematically, it's absolutely a Thurge thing. So maybe I would lower the difficulty for a Thurge character, especially if they have gifts that play with noses a lot or make sense, such as Pulse of the Invisible or something like that. But any auspice could get away with it. The others are still there, don't worry. They were cutting down the trees in this forest, or Center himself. Here. I think last time we went with cutting down trees in the forest, so just to be different and get a different result, I'm going to go with Center himself here. Maybe we're going to learn more about the place of power itself, or the Cairn Heart, or something like that. How could you come here to center yourself? I asked, remembering the buzzing, restless energy from just moments before. This place is special, Daniel said. Some people call it a place of power, as I told you. And they have good reason to, Cornell added. Look around you. So I looked. It was a clearing filled with light. I could see Cornell's traces, a beautiful pattern on the ground. But there was one thing that caught my attention more than anything else. The tower spoiled the serenity of the scene. The boulders around here were strange, or fruit trees? I actually don't remember what I took last time, but I think the tower spoiled the scenery of the scene would be more rageful or confrontational again, so I'm thinking about taking that. Well, I certainly don't remember saying this last time, so I think we got the right choice. Why the fuck is this here? I asked, pointing at the observation tower. I thought it was supposed to be a forest untouched by humans. People believed this was a place of worship thousands of years ago, hence the fruit trees, the stone circle, and now the tower. And indeed, there's a lot of energy in this place. You felt it, didn't you? It was probably the heat, or yeah. Well, I've admitted the forest wants to talk to me, so I guess I can be a bit spiritual. Yeah, I felt it, I said without enthusiasm. The pushta is wounded and in pain. It calls out in rage to anyone who can hear it. Here this call is louder. You see, the logging, his eyes darkened, is slaughter. Anya gasped quietly. Every priceless thing can be destroyed by greed. Logging is illegal, of course, but illegal is sometimes just a way of saying a bit more expensive, but still profitable, especially for huge corporation. I still absolutely love that quote. Don't know if I mentioned it last time, but that is a brilliant quote. Also completely accurate. The forest is hurt. The wound is getting bigger, as is its desperation. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Why doesn't anyone know about it? Or it was wrong? I think last time we were outraged a bit, we went with it was wrong. But now that we're full with rage, and most likely in ahroun, we're not just outraged about it. We're fed up and we want to do... Well, not fed up, but we're pissed off enough about it that we want to do something about it. That is extremely ahroun. And once again, with just a little change, they are completely giving me the correct feel. I clenched my fists. Someone should sabotage the whole thing. You can't log without tools, and buying new tools will get unprofitable at some point. Cornell regarded me for a moment with a faint smile. You have a connection with this forest, don't you? You should come to the login site and meet everyone. Absolutely, Anya said eagerly. I became suspicious, or it sounded good. Since I'm riled up, I'm gonna go with it sounded good. It could be the next step, And even if it wasn't, something had to be fucking done about the logging situation. Yeah, I'll come, I smiled. Great. He jumped suddenly and looked at the wooden tower and the bike I'd noticed earlier. The Schwalbe is getting restless, he said. And, as Daniel pointed out, I should be on the logging site setting up the protest. Once again, I don't even remember that there was a single fuck said last time, but now they're all over the place. As I said, just one word sprinkled here and there completely changes the reading. It's essentially the same story, but just because now and again my character goes, fuck this shit, I'm no longer a Ragabash. I'm absolutely an ahroun now. I'm pissed off and I want to fuck things up. Schwalbe? What is a Schwalbe? I asked, confused. He named his bike Swallow, Daniel explained. He loves it very much. Cornell grinned. Oh, I do. Nice meeting you, Maya. The moment he disappeared, the buzzing came back. It wasn't not as strong as before, but it was there. All I wanted to do was get out of here before the wasps came back. Between the trees, I watched as Daniel walked through the forest, silent and sure-footed. So, no choice anymore, we're going to the Wolves' Den. Last time, I really connected with that story here. Mostly, I guess, because I always play Lupus, so having a bit of a Lupus-type storyline there pleased me quite a bit. I don't know how it's going to play out this time as an ahroun. I don't see how it could be very much different, but we'll try. The old den. The first thing I noticed when we stopped was a pine tree. A pine tree I knew. I remembered it. Small, twisted, crooked, and immensely powerful. Every bend of every branch had a story to tell. It's majestic, I thought suddenly. Months before that, when I decided to come to Poland, I dreamed of that tree. I was sure of it. Just like I was sure that under its roots I'd find a burrow, and a few feet away another one, like two dark eyes gazing at me as I approached. Daniel passed me and approached the tree. He pressed his cheek against the trunk. Hello, he said quietly. I don't remember what we had last time. Here says the text is different because we have a higher rage, but it sounds the same, but maybe it's saying that we're on a different path and the text later on might be different. I don't know. I think last time we said hello again. Here we can either say nothing or was there someone else there? Let's see who he's talking to. Let's be inquisitive. Hello, I repeated just in case. But it seemed like we were the only people there. This is the den, announced Daniel. It's abandoned, of course, but still worth seeing. Didn't look very impressive, or why is it abandoned? I think last time we asked why it was abandoned, so I'm taking the other one. Why is it worth seeing? I wasn't very impressed. I mean, it's just two holes in the side of a hill. But because of its story, he sat under the tree, leaning his back against it. It was a hot spring morning when they found this den. No one knows who the men were, even though it was only one human generation ago. There were 6 cubs here under the roots of this tree. He'd stopped stuttering and seemed to enjoy telling the story. I'm thinking Daniel might be Lupus himself. He seems connected to the whole thing, and I'm thinking that when he's talking, his hesitation and his stuttering might be because speaking is not very natural to me, but my guess is that Daniel might actually be a Galliard himself. So I'm thinking when he starts actually telling his story, he stops stuttering because he's now just immersed into the story that he's telling. Once again, complete guess on my part. I enjoyed listening, or it felt weird. I see nothing wrong with enjoying listening. But I think that's what we took last time, because we were very cooperative last time, so I'm just gonna go with it felt weird. I felt slightly anxious listening to him, like I was on the brink of remembering things that I wasn't aware I knew. I don't think they wanted to hurt the wolves, he continued. They probably thought they'd been abandoned. That's why they took the cubs with them. Humans have this instinct that makes you try to befriend everything, especially if it's dangerous. Not befriend, enslave. Yep, let's go with that. You mean enslave, I answered sharply. Pulling something from the world and forcing it to work for us. I hated it, but it was how it seemed to be. I'm not saying it always works out, but the intention is good, and I believe the men who kidnapped the wolves... Oh, I'm sorry, that's him talking. I'm not saying it always works out, but the intention is good, and I believe the men who kidnapped the wolves wanted to do something kind, he continued. Anyway, they took them. Out of the 6, 2 lived to see the cold summer that year. The wolf mother used to come to the farm they were at and howl. People went gray if they heard her. I knew that howl. And suddenly I heard that howl. I knew exactly how it sounded, and I felt despair and longing gnawing at my soul. I remembered how the cubs had reacted. They threw themselves at the door, they howled in response, or they snarled at people. I think last time we snarled, now we've got high rage, and I absolutely want to throw myself at that door, so we're doing that. Interesting. I was aiming for cunning last time, and we ended up with, I believe, 4 cunning, 4 analytical, and a bit of spiritual. Right now, we're almost all the way to the top, being brave. To the cost of being half dead, but still, we're being a lot more successful tonight than we were last night. Every time she came, we threw ourselves at the door, biting, trying to break free, to escape. Maya, are you okay? Anya asked, putting her hand on my shoulder. It was nothing. I liked how he told the story, or I felt for the cubs. Well, I'm literally feeling them throwing at the doors, feeling I'm there, so I guess I felt for the cubs. I just feel for the cubs. I know a little about divided families myself. Oh. I think that's what we did last time. Yeah, they usually ended the conversation. Daniel sighed, looking at the tree and the burrow. The cubs that survived were sold to some people in Hajnoka. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this. But after a while, both of them ended up back in Białowieża with the scientists. They have a station in the national park. One of the wolves, Kazan, was a celebrity of sorts. If you saw any wolf photos from here, they were probably of Kazan. And he was even on postcards. I'd hoped he'd eaten someone. Bit intense. Definitely more of a red talon response than just generic ahroun, but I'm still gonna go for it. Daniel, cautious. Yep. That's the correct response. I'm surprised Anya didn't become cautious as well. Is she? I think she's neutral, right? Anya is neutral. Okay. I hope he at least bit someone, preferably in the neck. I was furious. Daniel looked at me scornfully. The scientists never hurt him. Nobody wanted to hurt him. Even the men who took the cubs. There was a slight gust of wind and the tree creaked. I remembered that sound from my dreams as well, a sound that made me feel safe. How often had he shared that story, or I looked at the empty dens? I'm pretty sure last time we looked at the dens, so we're going to go with this one this time. Do you bring people here often? Daniel smiled. I think they'll understand, I do. He fell silent. He looked at the burrows for a long time. This place is my friend, so I try to keep it important and respected. I think it's my mission, you know? I could relate to that, or this guy was super weird. I'm gonna keep with the super weird thing, but I want to point out it's not because he's stuttering or anything like that. There's no judgment on my part regarding that. I'm just going with the approach that seems more abrasive. Okay, I said cautiously. Daniel looked at the tree one last time. Goodbye, he said. I also said my goodbyes, or I just left. At this point, I'm afraid we're gonna die if we do something wrong, so instead of just leaving alone in this forest that is trying to kill me and has already wounded me twice, I will say my goodbyes, hoping to stick around Daniel and not, you know, be alone in the forest. Goodbye, I repeated, and we left. I watched as Daniel walked through the forest, silent and sure-footed. We made our way back. Interesting thing I want to point out right now before we get back to town and the demo ends. Last time, I think it was the third Cornell. He told us that the forest is speaking to us and that we should pay attention to what it's saying, in particular tonight when we were going to sleep. Now we didn't have that, and I'm wondering, is it because we have absolutely nothing in spirituality, or is it because he's neutral, whereas last time I think he liked us, or is it because I had another theory, but I forgot what it was. I had another thing that I was thinking that might have been the trigger. I don't know. But will we even have that dream now? Did we have it? I'm thinking last time we had it probably because we connected with the forest and the forest liked us and wanted to tell us something. And now I feel like we're not going to have that plot thread at all. Which begs the question, how is the demo going to end this time? The first evening, the B&B was quaint. When we got back, we were both drained. We were soon curled up in our beds. What a day, Anya yawned. So what do you think? I made a quick mental inventory of everything that had happened that day. Daniel was a strange guy. I was moved by the story of the wolves. I was freaked out by the vision at the barrows, or they were cutting down the trees and I didn't like it. Yeah, that's the one. I can't believe they're logging here. I shook my head. Isn't the forest on a UNESCO list or something? Soon we were both asleep. I was tired, sure, but also excited. And excitement isn't the best for sleep. I lay there for a while thinking about everything that had happened and that might happen next. The wind from the open window lapped over my skin as I watched the silver rectangle painted on the wall by the moonlight. I drifted off. A night in the woods. Okay, I guess we're getting the dream after all. In a big city, old men sit in leather chairs, lazily enjoying their ever-growing wealth. They watch Białowieża on flickering screen. They watch me. I feel the excitement rising deep within my stomach, then through my whole body. Wow. Okay. Completely different dream this time. I don't think we had that. I am a weapon or I am a cub. We're absolutely a cub, but since we're being ahroun, I'm more a weapon. I'm a razor sharp... I should explain that actually. Sorry. What's a cub in the context of werewolf? In werewolf, there are ranks, essentially. The more you do as a werewolf, the more renown you get. If you get enough renown, you can challenge someone of a higher rank to raise in ranks. The lowest possible rank is Cub. That's the rank you have when you're not actually considered a member of the Garou Nation yet. When the nation thinks that you are ready for it, they do what's known as a rite of passage. That's usually where you get your first pack as well. When you successfully go through your rite of passage, most of the cubs that were together for the rite of passage make a pack when they're done. Some of these packs can last a lifetime. Sometimes they're just going to break apart and start a new one. So here I'm saying I'm a cub, definitely, because I don't think Maya is even aware that she's a werewolf at this point yet. I don't even know if she had her first change. Probably because she's 24, and first changes, as I said last time, are something that happens around puberty. But who knows? So that's why I said she's a cub. A razor sharp knife. I'm sorry. I am a razor sharp knife. I am a sword. I am a gun waiting to be fired. I'm asleep for now, but soon someone will use me and I can't wait. I feel a pull and I surrender to it. I am pointed toward a clearing. There are piles of fresh corpses of people who died too young, skinned, and mutilated. Their loved ones stand around them, grieving, unable to do anything, waiting. And suddenly they are just trees and trunks. That we had last time. I remember that bit. I roar, I howl, I look around. Damn, this game makes me feel like werewolf. I absolutely roar as we're pissed off. Brave is now at 9. Wow. There's a roar, and I realize it's mine. I will kill whoever hurts the trees. There is a stench in the air like meat rotting in acid, but somehow worse. I see the monstrous armies. Their mandibles are whirling chainsaws. Their long metal arms are wrapped with black pipes that look like glistening intestines. Their smell is vile. They wait, unmoving. I charge at them, I turn to the forest for answers, or I pay my respect to the dead. I charge! I try to breathe through my mouth as I run towards the machines. I hit and kick them blindly, screaming at the top of my lungs. And in my own screams I hear strange whispers. They tell me to look at the sky. There between the stars, two shapes circle each other. An old, sad wolf with gray hair and a white weasel. So we got a weasel again. And in the sense that we got the vision, the same one that ends up with the weasel, but also there was something else. I was wondering if there was a way, essentially because they're giving us a way to control the story, to make choices that change the story, not just our own decisions. I was wondering if there were multiple totems that we could get, essentially. Last time we'd gotten Weasel, but maybe we'd have, I don't know, Fenris or something this time. But we played completely differently, and we have Weasel again, so I'm thinking it's most likely officially that Weasel is there to stay, and that it is the totem of the Cairn. They keep their eyes on one another as they continue their dance, suspicious but not hostile. We need to fight the enemy, the awful rotting stench. I know that much. But how can we do that when we don't trust each other? They stop. They look at me and the clearing. I can either jump towards them or challenge them. I'm gonna be bold and challenge them because I'm very curious to see how that's gonna end. But in the context of werewolf, assuming I was a character that knew what they were doing, challenging a totem is a big deal. but we don't know what we're doing. We're a cub. We're not trained. We're just seeing weird things. It's a weird vision, and we are angry, and we are ridiculously brave, so I'm going for it. Come here and face me! Once again, I don't recognize the words, but I understand. They come down to me. We've been waiting for you for a long time. Wait a sec. An old wolf. I said last time there's no totem that's a wolf, but that's actually not true. Fenris, the totem, because okay, I said there were totems for packs and totems for cairns, but each of the 13 tribes also have tribal totems. That's not something that changes. Like a cairn could have a number of different totems and a pack could have a number of different totems, but each of the tribes have a specific totem. And the Get of Fenris, their totem is Fenris, which is essentially the huge wolf from mythology, Norse mythology. It's an actual wolf, so maybe we're looking at two totems actually. Maybe the wolf doesn't represent werewolves per se, but Fenris himself. And Fenris might actually look well on someone who challenges him, because he's a freaking badass and he only respects people with huge, big Roman balls. So I'm interesting that the totems would react saying, oh yeah, you're the one we were waiting for. You're the one with the guts to do what needs to be done. Interesting. So they come down to me. We've been waiting for you for a long time, and I wake up. The end. You have finished the Heart of the Forest demo version. Thank you for playing the demo of Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of the Forest. The Maya you played was a warrior, no kidding, born under the full moon. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Okay, wow. That was a blast. Seriously, I'm very impressed. Very impressed. All the story beats were the same. We went to the same location. We had essentially the same dialogues, but it felt like a different game to me. Literally, I did not feel like it was repetitive. I did not feel like I was going through the same paces. I felt like two different people going through two different stories. Because the mood and the tone was really, really spot on. I'm very, very, very excited for the real game. Seriously. I don't know what I'll be playing. I said before that I'm going to aim for a Galliard playthrough next time. Now that I've played both a Ragabash and an ahroun, I don't know anymore. In the sense that the playthroughs feel so different from one another in what they make you feel, essentially. And I have to admit... Sound is loud. Okay, sorry. I'm probably just a lot closer to the mic. I have to admit, the ahroun playthrough just now made me feel things. It was more intense for me, which makes sense. So I enjoyed that quite a bit, more than I did the Ragabash playthrough. So I'm not sure what I'm going to aim for. And I had a talk recently with... It's difficult to hear me, so okay. Can you hear me now? Oh, game sound is loud. Okay, okay. Sorry about that. Let's mute it. Okay. So as I was saying, I had more fun playing as an ahroun than I did playing Ragabash. It was more intense. There was a lot more emotion. And I had a conversation recently with other people who were watching the stream, and they made a really good point that you can't play something for the first time again. So I think I'm gonna go with their suggestion, which is I'm not gonna aim for anything particular. When the game comes out, I will play it as I would have if I wasn't streaming. I will play it legitimately the way I feel like when I do. And I hear Stanil in the chat recommending that I aim for Galliard, and while I'm not going to aim for it, that's probably what's going to happen in the sense that I identify as Galliard. The moon when I was born was a gibbous moon. So literally my auspice is Galliard in real life, and I think it's appropriate. I do see myself as a storyteller, as someone who is a bit of a lore keeper, someone who likes to share knowledge. As you might have seen, I'm not just playing these games, I'm also sharing what I know of werewolf as I go. So most likely I will naturally end up as a Galliard, but I don't know, and I'm not going to purposefully go for it. I will go with what my gut feelings tell me to go towards. Very curious to see what that's going to end up being when the game comes out, but for now, that's the plan. Speaking of that's the plan, I don't intend to play Heart of the Forest again until the game comes out for the moment. I do intend to play Shadows of New York when it comes out, which is not next week, but the week after that. Which means next Monday at 7, we will be playing Gibbous again. Try to get a bit more work done on that game. And after that, we'll start Shadows of New York. I'm keeping Gibbous more of an in-between type game. I do intend to finish playing it. I liked it. I had a lot of fun, but the stream is really more about Werewolf and Wall of Darkness in general. So since Shadow of New York's coming out, I'm playing it for sure. But in between Shadows and Heart of the Forest, if there's time in between both releases, we're probably going to go back to Gibbous. So anyway, we'll see how things play out. But next week, please join me again for the second episode of us playing Gibbous. And after that, if you want to see more World of Darkness, if you want to see more 5th edition, join me for Shadows of New York, which is a game set not in Werewolf the Apocalypse, but in Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition setting. So we're going to be talking a lot about about Vampire and the changes they made in 5th edition. I'm not as knowledgeable of Vampire. I'm very knowledgeable, but not as much of Vampire than I am in Werewolf. But I'm going to explain things as I understand them and as I know them again. Also, as I said, I only read the core book of Vampire 5th edition, and only once when it came out. So I am by no means an expert of the mechanics or the changes in the setting of Vampire 5th edition. So bear with me if I say things that might not be accurate or incomplete. I will do my best to bring you all up to speed, but I'm not myself fully up to speed either. If in the chat you know more than me and you want to give more details while I'm explaining things, please go ahead. I'm willing to learn, and I just want everyone to know more. As I said, I'm a lore keeper. I want to spread knowledge, so if I'm not the one with the knowledge, it's just as good if it's coming from somebody else. So thank you very much for coming tonight, and see you all next week.